In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to debug some Python program using the traceback messages that occur when there's a problem. And we'll get that to reinforce some of the code we've looked at to be able to put things on screen and loop through some messages. So this is 1D, debugging some Python code in the Cypher's introduction. So I have my markdown instructions here explaining what I need to do. I have my code here, which is main.py, and I'm going to work my way through and see if I can get this working as code. So the first thing I have to do, run the code in this lesson. Each time to do this, you'll get a new error to fix. Read the traceback messages carefully. They're giving us a clue about what the problem is. Now I can see straight away there's going to be an issue here because I've got a red underline on my code which suggests that Python is not happy with what's on screen already. I'm just going to drag this line here to give me a bit more space to work with. So I can snap that over there and we'll get a bit more space to work with in the code. We can always get this back. If I just click on this, it will pop back out again. So I'm going to click on run and see what happens. And what happens is, as we expected, is that there's a problem with line 4. Now the traceback messages that you get in the console are trying to help you to identify where the problems are. So it tells me the problem's on line 4, and it thinks the problem starts just after the word print when I start a speech mark. It says, syntax error, missing parenthesis in call to print. Did you mean this? Yes, I probably did mean that. Alright, so it's been very helpful here. It's not only told me what the problem is, it's giving me an example of how to fix that. And you won't always be as lucky with your error messages, but in this case, that's exactly what I wanted. I needed to have brackets, which is another word for parenthesis, around the thing I want to print. So I go here to print. I open a bracket there. It's closed the bracket immediately because it's doing that in pairs. So I'm going to have to delete that bracket, go to the end of the message, and put a closing bracket there. So notice the pairs are highlighted. This matches to this, and that should now be correct. So I try running again. And it says that the next problem is on line 7. And it seems to think it starts at the word R. Now I'm going to go and look at my instructions and see if I can get some help with this. So I've dealt with this one here. This error points at the opening speech marks. So fix the problem by changing. Then it says here, in this case the little arrow is misleading. The problem is the missing speech marks around the words we want to print. So this error message, syntax error, invalid syntax, just means that Python doesn't really know what you're trying to say. It thinks I'm trying to print a variable, in other words a box labelled U, and then it doesn't understand why I've got more boxes appearing here. Notice the colours that we've got. On line 4, hello Birkdale student is all in red because it's in speech marks. Here it's all in black because it thinks these are individual named boxes. So to fix this, I have to put the speech marks in that are missing. And I'm going to go here to just inside the print bracket and open up a speech mark. And I'm going to come along to the very end of the thing I want to print, which is the word Python. I'm going to put in a speech mark. And again, it seems to have fixed this section and moved the problem further down the code. But I'm just going to run this now and see if I can figure out what is going wrong. So I click on run. And it tells me that there is a syntax error, and the size of my screen is being a little bit confusing here. Syntax error starts at the T of text, and it just says invalid syntax. So what's going on line 10 to cause us a problem? Well, if I go back and look at my instructions, I find that it's saying where the problem starts is because there's a space before it. All right, I need to delete the space to leave a keyword ciphertext. So cipher space text is not valid Python. Any labels that you put on your boxes in memory, any variables, have to be a single keyword. So ciphertext, all one word, is fine. Cipher space text is a problem. So I remove that space there, and now I'm good to move on. I've clicked on run again. It thinks there's a problem at the end of line 14 at the T of ciphertext. So I go here and I see I've got 4-letter in ciphertext. And remember, the comments in the code might be put there by me to just give you some help there. So it says here that for loops must end with a colon, and code that follows it must be indented. So anytime we use a for loop, we have to put a colon at the end to say what follows this is the stuff I want you to repeat, and the bits to be repeated have to be moved in from the edge of the screen using the tab key. So it looks as if that has been moved in from the edge of the screen. It should be fine. So if I click on run now, and the problem has now moved to line 21, and this is an indentation error. So if I go and look at my instructions, so in Python it's essential that code has got the correct spacing. Programs will not run if you don't have them lined up properly on the screen. So you can see up here, we said that you're going to have a colon and then the indentation. And I've repeated that here. I've got the colon, but I don't have the indentation. So I'm going to go here to below before the F of flipped, and I'm going to press the tab key to move in from the side. Now you can see in this one here, that's only been moved in a couple of spaces. This one here has been moved in about 4 spaces using the tab key. I would recommend that you always use the tab key for your indentations and never the space bar. Okay, that seems to be happier now. If I click on run. Now, I've actually got some output. Hello Birkdale student, you're learning to use Python. I've got EDOC with dots between them. And then it got as far as line 24, and it's then given me a name error. The name flipped is not defined. Now, if I look at it, line 18, flipped starts out as an empty box with nothing in it. So I've got flipped equals, and I've got speech marked with nothing between them, which means it starts out as a word or string that's got nothing in it. And then in here I say flipped plus equals letter, so I'm adding letters to flipped each time. But if I look at line 24, it's a different spelling. It's undefined because this one has a capital F, and flipped with a capital F is not the same thing as flipped with a lowercase f. So I need to go here and change that to be the same spelling as I've used elsewhere. And if I run it now, this for loop here, so this one here, what it does is it says for each letter, add the letter and 3 dots. And that's why we got EDOC here became E ellipsis D ellipsis O ellipsis C, ellipsis being 3 dots. If I look at the second loop here, for letter in reversed ciphertext. So I'm going to take ciphertext and I'm going to flip it around backwards. And therefore, I get a message written back to front can look like a code. So if you just looked at this message here, it looks a bit like gibberish. Edoc a kill, cool. But if you flip it round, it then makes some kind of sense. So we've used the print command to put things on screen. We've used, not in this case input, but in other code, we've used input to collect maybe what the message is, and we've used for loops to go through a letter at a time and do something to our messages in order to decode them. And this is very much the kind of code that we'll need to use to break secret codes in future exercises. So you're ready now to go and look at things like the Caesar or the @bash cipher, or more sophisticated ciphers like a substitution keyword.